So can you kind of talk about the relationship between reading books and becoming a better writer?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We talked before about intention, practice, and critique. Intention is where it starts, and reading is part of intention. Um, I think Stephen King says in his book on writing, which is probably the most read, eh, tons of famous authors have written books on writing, and a lot of them are just fantastic. They're all fantastic, but I think his is probably best known. And it's a really good book. But I think in there somewhere he says, if you don't have time to read, then you don't have time to write. It's like you're not going to, or the skills. Um, so yeah, reading great writing is such a critical part of writing, of being a writer, becoming a writer, improving as a writer. Reading is like eating is to caloric output. Reading is like inhaling is to out, you know, to exhale, to out breath, to physical effort. Reading is like sleeping, where you rebuild your body, where you repair your tissues, where you restore yourself. Reading is the lifeblood of writing. So it's like I heard Lee Child talking, and I think I mentioned this in the book. I heard him at a virtual authors event, talking with somebody else, and I think Karen Slaughter or somebody, and he casually mentioned he reads about a book a day. This dude reads a book a day,
Yeah.
and I don't read that much. I mean, no wonder. It's like this guy reads. So you don't need to read a book a day necessarily, but a book a week isn't a bad idea. Um, and so it's sometimes I I say, and I think this is a good idea. You don't have to read in the same genre you're writing in. Like if you're writing nonfiction, you can read fiction, and if you're reading, if you like to write horror, then it's okay to read romance, and if you like to write romance, it's okay to read children's books and so forth. I say that at the same time I have to admit that for years I wrote nonfiction, and all I read was fiction. I wrote all those parables. I wasn't reading any parables. All I was reading was crime novels. And so now I'm finally writing crime novels. That's what I would want to do for 20 years. But yeah, reading is crucial. And sometimes we'll talk about writer's block, but sometimes you hit a block where you can't. I hit a block where I can't do anything, and it's because I need to take a break and read. I need to refill the inspiration.
Yeah, and there's multiple like kind of advantages to reading there. One is like you're getting inspiration. Two is like sometimes you need a break, and three is like you have to learn from the masters if you want to get to like that
Yes,
level.
it's cool to read, and I should do this more than I do, and I admit that. I mean, I think it's a great thing to read something that just hits you like a two by four, and then say, okay, now wait, how did she do that? I mean, what words did she use? What order are they in? What's the magic here? And put yourself behind the curtain and try to figure out what this author did. Every now and then I do that, and I learn so much from it. I don't do it as much as I might think I should because I'm being sucked along by the book, but I do think it's a great thing to do. And some of my favorite books I've read multiple times. If you want to read a book two or three times, that tells you that there's a lot of juice in that book to get out.
And I think you just touched on a really important point, which is like you're being a deliberate reader. Like not only are you reading the book, but you're seeing what kind of words do they use, what kind of sentences, how do they
Yes,
organize this paragraph in the story. And I think a
yes.
lot of writers kind of just, okay, I'm reading this book for entertainment, but they don't really take that next step and become deliberate about what they're reading and how the author structured the book.
And you can do both. I mean, you can completely enjoy them, but it's nice every now and then. And here's the thing you can do is the way you can do it is just keep tabs on yourself and notice when you had your socks knocked off. Notice when you have to sit back and go, whoa, that passage was so beautiful, or that passage was so shocking, or I am so surprised, or I'm so gripped, or whatever it is. I have to stop and go, whoa. When that happens, if you don't want to stop right now because the story is pulling you along like a riptide, bookmark it. Bookmark it. Go back, highlight, go back. And maybe tomorrow, after you finish the book, whatever, it's worth the time. Go back and find your favorite spots and say, okay, now, what just happened here? Because it isn't always obvious. Like sometimes I go and I look at a passage that I just adored, like in Tana French or in Raymond Chandler or in heck in Lee Child, whoever, and I'll go back and look at it later and go, I never even realized, you know, that the guy had like 3 or 4 or 5 pages of paragraphs that were this long and suddenly went boom, 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 short paragraphs and then boom, a one liner. I didn't even see that happening when it was happening. But when I go back and I kind of analyze this, oh, right, I get why I was like choking in my chest because he did that to me with his paragraph breaks. Yeah, it's cool. It's so much discovery to do there.